Hello, welcome back to another edition of the Halloween Tapes 2022. My name is Paul Mount. Right, just a little warning about the film I'm covering today. A lot of people might question why I'm looking at this film, because the writer and director Victor Salva has since been much vilified since the release of this film and its sequels because of very unpleasant activities that he indulged in. He spent time in prison for sexual offence. He was convicted of possessing child pornography. He's a very unsavoury character. And I did think twice about talking about this film. And when I decided I was going to rewatch it, I remembered all this stuff. And I did a little bit of research into it. I thought, ooch, people may have a problem with this film being resurrected again. Which is a shame, because I think sometimes you have to sort of try and put some distance between what the person does and what they've done creatively. So if you are offended by the fact that I'm talking about this film today, and you're entirely welcome to, I do apologise if you are, move on. Don't watch this video, move on to the next one. And I hope that you won't react by unsubscribing from the channel, because we are talking about horror films after all, and sometimes the very worst horror is actually out in the real world. So let's talk about Jeepers Creepers. Right, Jeepers Creepers arrived in 2001. It marked the arrival of a new monster creature for the horror genre in the shape of the Creeper, this hatted, cloaked figure who apparently appears every 23 years and kills 23 people, I think, and mutilates their bodies for his own particular purposes. I think this is a very good film, regardless of the creature who actually created the film, the monster who created the film. It's a very good, very well made film. I mean, Victor Salva may be a less than salubrious character, but he knew how to make a horror film. This is a good horror film. It's actually feels like two films stuck together, because the initial story of the film follows Trish, played by Gina Phillips, and Darry, played by Dustin Long, who are travelling through the American Midwest wilderness on their way back to visit their parents. They've got that sort of joshing familiarity that brothers and sisters have, ribbing each other, taking the mickey out of each other, laughing at each other. They seem to get on fairly well. They're rattling along in this beaten up old car when suddenly they come into an encounter, a pretty terrifying encounter, with this huge rusted truck which tries to force them off the road. They manage to get out of his way and he zooms off into the distance, but before long they pass an abandoned church off the road and they see the figure from the truck dumping what's clearly a blood-stained sheet with a body in it into this empty pipe in the yard of the church. The kid's conscience gets the better of them, particularly Darry. He wants to go back because what they've identified as a body, he wants to know if there's something they can do to help. So, by and large, he finds his way inside the pipe. He slips down the pipe where he finds something absolutely terrifying, which sets off a chain of events that leads them into terrible danger as the driver of the truck turns out to be something less than human. This is a good film. It pains me to say it's a good film in a way. Victor Salva clearly, as I say, he knew his way around horror films and horror tropes and horror cliches, but he presented them a slightly different way. He created a really interesting new monster here, in the form of the Creeper, this strange insectoid thing with wings and a horrible supernatural visage, if you like, that emerged every 23 years and killed and mutilated. Some people have suggested that the creation of the Creeper is a manifestation of Victor Salva's own subconscious and his own personality. That may well be true. But all I know is that here he created a very tense and very gripping film, which, as I said, is sort of two films jammed together, because you've got the first half of the film, which is very much focused on these two kids alone cat and mouse with this creature. And then the second half of the film broadens things a little bit, where they go to a police station and other characters get involved, and the canvas broadens slightly, leading to a very terrifying conclusion for our heroes, if you like. So yes, this is a film I think that anybody who watches now is going to have misgivings about watching it, because of the history of the man who made it, and it's very hard to separate those two things. But as a film in its own right, it's really very good. It's very, very well done. There are lots of really edgy moments which have you sort of feeling sort of apprehensive of what's going to happen, feeling anxious because there's this creature. And the more we see this thing, the more we realise that it is some sort of supernatural entity that appears almost indestructible, extraordinarily agile, and is clearly something demonic. Now, the film doesn't really explain what it is, possibly because Salva suspected that it would become a franchise and he could go into it a bit more depth. And there's also no real explanation of what the connection is with the song Jeepers Creepers that's played on the soundtrack occasionally. What the connection is with him, why it matters to him, what the resonance is with him. So there's a lot of unanswered questions. Most importantly is, what is the creeper? Where does he come from? Why does he do what he does? But I enjoyed watching it again. In the back of my mind, yes, I was conscious of the fact that it's made by somebody who's been horribly discredited and rightly discredited. But I think I'm not entirely sure that it's right to cancel the work that they did, especially if it is of a certain quality in its genre. And I think this is a good horror film that deserves some sort of recognition. So I'm not going to necessarily say I recommend you watch Jeepers Creepers, because you may well feel you can't separate the man from the film, which is fine. I just wanted to see the film again, and that's why this review has been slightly rambling and slightly hesitant, because I don't know how people will react to the fact that I'm watching it. People will react and they will be judgmental, I understand that. But I just think Jeepers Creepers is a very strong, genuinely quite terrifying film. I don't scare easily. I don't watch horror films as scare, but I can see why people would be scared. And there are lots of moments here which are genuinely quite shocking and genuinely quite jump scary. I mean, I'm always wary of jump scares because it's a horror cliche, but they're done well here. There are sort of images and the direction, the very way it's framed. The creeper himself is played by Jonathan Brock. I don't know who he is, but he brings a real physicality to this creature. And there's one particular moment where the creature appears to have been run over, and suddenly this wing sprouts through its body. And this is when you sort of realise, whoa, this is something really genuinely, weirdly supernatural. So I enjoyed the film. I'm making no excuses for it, but I just think it is a very good horror film in its own right. But I fully understand people might not want to go close to it because they have a problem with the man, which is fine. But I think Jeepers Creepers is a pretty good film, and I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I may well watch Jeepers Creepers 2. I probably won't review it here. I think I've said my piece as far as the film and the filmmaker, and conscious of the fact that he did what he did. I just think that sometimes you have to be able to look at the work separate from the person and what the person has done. But that's me. You may well feel entirely different. You might well be appalled. Madam's here. You may well be appalled that I've watched this film, much less talked about it. But I just wanted to reevaluate it because I've not seen it for 15 or so years, and I just thought it would be interesting to watch it this time of year. Right, that's Jeepers Creepers. Apologies then for anybody who's offended. Coming up next, we've got an absolute classic, I think. One of my favourite horror films of all time. I watched it again last night in preparation for the video I'll be recording tomorrow. And it's still a very, very powerful film with a bleak and depressing ending. But that's to come. Right, thank you for watching. If you've liked this video, regardless of the content, if you like, please like and subscribe, leave a comment, and share. I'll see you soon. Until I do, you must keep taking the stuff.